CD Projekt Red just dropped the latest update to Cyberpunk 2077, and with it they also dropped support for Nvidia's GTX 780 graphics card from 2013. As the AMD Radeon R9 290 was also released in 2013, and in my experience has been up to the challenge of running Cyberpunk at a playable FPS in the past, I thought it was worth checking in, just to make sure everything's okay. CDPR's reasoning for specifically dropping the GTX 780 as the minimum recommended graphics card for Cyberpunk is that the card no longer receives updates from Nvidia. Well, the same actually holds true for the R9 290, whose driver support ended last summer. With this update, I initially planned just to check in and see if the legacy drivers, last updated in June 2021, would still work, as I've heard this is no longer the case for GTX 700 series cards. If they hadn't worked, that might not have been the end of the world. Thanks to modder Amurna Maison, there is still a way to install new drivers on some unsupported older cards. Check out my video linked below for more on that. As it happens, I didn't need to worry. The legacy 21.6.2 drivers were still able to run the game, and are what I've tested with in this video. My previous video on the R9 290 saw Cyberpunk 2077 run at 38 FPS on average using a resolution of 1920 by 1080 and the medium quality preset, with the occasional dip into the high 20s. With the 1.5 update, this seems to have improved slightly. Native 1080 medium runs at 40 FPS with lows of 28. Dropping to the low preset hits an average of almost 50 FPS, up from 45 in the last version of the game. Out of curiosity, I also threw in a pass at 1080 high, which I didn't test previously, and found it to be almost playable at 31 FPS on average and 1% lows of 22. Of course, I'm sure a 5 to 10% improvement in performance on old, unsupported hardware is more of an unintended benefit than an intentional upgrade. CDPR's press releases don't seem to have mentioned much at all about performance boosts, although both this card and the GTX 970 that I've also recently tested have both definitely improved this time around. What could be seen as a benefit to performance is the addition of FidelityFX Super Resolution, or FSR. This replaces the standard resolution scaling slider and doesn't so much improve performance as offer a higher image quality at lower resolutions. Still, it's a popular addition, so I decided to play through my standard benchmark run at high, medium and low using FSR scaling from ultra quality down to performance. Beginning with high settings, which were only borderline playable without FSR, adding ultra quality drops the render resolution by a factor of 1.3 and increases performance by over 30%, jumping from an average of 31 FPS to 41. 1% lows are similarly improved up to 30 FPS. None of the other levels of FSR scaling have quite the same effect, with boosts of only about 10% per setting. Dropping to quality sees the average go from 41 to 44.5, and in my opinion is the lowest you should think of going at high settings. Dropping to balance takes image quality to a point that makes the game harder to play in my opinion, and the 3.5 FPS gain isn't worth it. Finally, performance FSR looks like trash, but does hit a 53 FPS average, making it the first time today I've seen the 50 FPS barrier broken. Medium is probably the quality setting I'd most recommend playing Cyberpunk at with the R9 290. 40 FPS without FSR is acceptably smooth for a single player game that doesn't rely much on reaction times, but adding FSR can make things a little more enjoyable. Ultra quality gives almost 20% higher FPS, pushing over 47 on average and over 30 FPS 1% lows. Dropping FSR to quality once more takes the framerate above the magic 50, but from here on the returns start to diminish pretty damn fast. Balanced and performance look like trash as always, and don't really give enough of a benefit to justify their use. Balanced sees about a 5% improvement to 55 FPS, and performance actually fails to reach 60 on average. I don't know if it's the CPU holding me back here or if the issue's with VRAM, but either way I think we've reached the limits of the medium setting here. Low starts off from a very playable position of 49.8 FPS, Adding ultra quality FSR takes us close to 60 straight away, averaging 58 FPS and only dropping as low as the mid-30s. FSR quality is nowhere near as big a boost in performance as you might like, just creeping over 60 FPS. FSR balanced is equally disappointing, only managing 63 FPS while looking significantly worse. And FSR performance is, in my opinion, a complete waste of time at only 66 FPS average. Given my opinion on FSR balance and performance, you won't be surprised that I decided to give Ultra Performance a miss. I don't know what the scaling factor is in this mode, but I do know that I'd rather play a different game at high settings than play this mess. Don't get me wrong, I love Cyberpunk, more than most, but the art style and visual quality are a big part of that. The R9 290 is approaching a decade old now, and I've probably sang its praises a little too much recently. In 2020 you could find these for £50 to £100 regularly, and while prices peaked for a while, they do at least seem to be coming back down to earth again. The official minimum recommended cards for Cyberpunk 2077 are the Nvidia GTX 970 and AMD RX 470. It's been a while since I tested the 470, and last time I did it scored pretty much exactly the same as the R9 290 did today. The GTX 970 didn't fare quite so well, as you can see from the video I made recently. Either way, if you have an R9 290 or can get one for cheaper than those other cards, this one should be your unofficial minimum recommended GPU. Thanks for watching, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.